And we can begin the meeting whenever you'd like, Bob. Yeah. Sure.
I'll second. Yep.
Normally you can just call to order. As the chair, you can just call to order, but if you want to call motion, it's totally fine. It's whatever you prefer. Yeah, not a problem. Great. So start the meeting out. Basically, there's a quick roll call. We have all of the commissioners here. Thanks so much for being here and being here in person. Appreciate it. And next thing we have is right now would be oral communications. I do not have any that were submitted physically and online. I'm not seeing anyone else in the meeting outside of Jane from Q2, as well as a couple of city representatives. So it looks like no oral communications. That would lead us to item number 3, which would be approval of the last meeting's minutes on July 12th. So if anyone would like to, hi Jane. If anyone would like to, have any questions about that, or feel free to make a motion in second. We go through those, but also I can adjust the minutes if needed as well.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Great. Everyone in favor, please just raise your hand if you don't mind. All right. Thank you. And no one opposed, so motion approved, 7-0. And next one is the Census Legacy Data Update. So we have Jane Hood here, who's from Q2 Data, as you know, working with Dr. Carr McDonald. And she's just going to give us kind of an overview of what is going on with that. There was a memo that was sent out regarding it as well, so feel free to reference that during this time. But Jane, whenever you'd like, feel free to go for it.
Okay, I'll get started and assume you can hear me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Hood. I'm from Q2 Data and Research, working with Carr McDonald, who sends her best and cannot be here tonight. So I'm just here to give a little update on what Q2 has been doing and sort of what's happening in the redistricting data world since we've last seen you, and then can answer any questions. And I was hoping to be able to listen to some of your meeting or stay for your meeting as well, but I don't know if the sound can be figured out for that, but I'll just dive into some updates. So you may have received the memo that Karin and I wrote regarding the legacy data set. And since we have sent that to you, some things have changed and actually moved faster than what we were expecting in that memo. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of that. So the legacy data set, as a reminder, is all of the information that was collected on the 2020 census form. So, and this is released at the block level, which is the smallest level of geography for the census. So this is the level that we'll be working at for redistricting so that we can use the smallest possible pieces to build the new districts. So the legacy data set came out from the Census Bureau 4 days early. So it was released on August 12th. And the statewide database needed 7 days to reformat this. They actually did it in 6, so that came out from them on August 18th in a more user-friendly format. The next process for the data will take 30 days, which is when the statewide database will be reallocating people who are incarcerated to their last known home address. So just finishing up some data processing in the next 30 days. So that will take us to September 18th. That's a Saturday, so the statewide database will then release the finalized redistricting data set for California on that Monday, September 20th. So that's a little bit earlier than the dates that were shared in the memo, and we'll send you an updated version of that after this meeting, but I just wanted to let you all know that things are moving ahead and actually going faster than expected on the data front. The second piece that we're working on around data right now is getting the citizen voting age population, which, if you'll remember, will be used to create over-under maps, which will let us know how over or underpopulated your current districts are, as well as perform preliminary voting rights analysis. So the citizen voting age population, or CVAP, is collected from the American Community Survey. And right now that needs to be updated from 2010 census geography to 2020 census geography. So that's what's going on there. And once we have that figured out and updated, we'll be able to really get into looking at an over-under map and seeing, what needs to happen with population in your current districts. So those are the two pieces of updates from the data work. We're also working on some website content and materials to get up for your jurisdiction so that people can start to learn more about, the process, and get those ready to go in advance of the meetings. So those are the updates. Hopefully we can get sound to work, and I can answer any questions you have, or if you have questions, maybe someone could write them in the chat. Yeah.
Great.
Let me know what works.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know and I'll type them in and let her answer anything you guys would like.
So she mentioned that the 20th is when we're going to get when she'll get the finalized
Okay,
census
great.
data.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the over/under? When would we see that? Would it also be the 20th of September? Thanks for being our scribe.
Oh, no worries.
Yes, so the final census data, as it goes for redistricting for California, will be released September 20th. So that is what the City of Escondido will be using for redistricting here, September 20th. The legacy data does have the census information, but it has to be reformatted and processed by the statewide database to be used for California's purposes. So September 20th is the big date to remember.
Any other questions?
Yeah, yes, one question. So it seems that the citizen voting age populations from the ACS, rather than the census 2028 itself, I was wondering if you can just provide a little bit more detail about the differences in those two data sets.
Which data sets? Would you mind repeating that?
ACS, which is the American
Community survey for the citizen
Community
voting
survey.
age population
Mhm.
and the census.
Perfect. Thank you.
that was just released.
Yeah, so the question is, what are the differences between the American Community Survey, ACS, and the census data set? So the big difference to remember is that the ACS is estimates and the census data is a complete count. So with the ACS, they release a lot of information every year about population and demographics, but those are only estimates. So the numbers that we have to use for redistricting can't be estimates. They have to be the actual count as counted by the 2020 census.
Great. Any other questions? No? All right. Perfect.
Hopefully that answers the question. Okay, great. No further questions. Okay, well, thank you so much. And yeah, again, feel free to follow up with Karin or myself if you do have any other questions. And yeah, I would say nice to see you, but I unfortunately didn't get to see any of you. But yeah, thank you for your time, and feel free to be in touch if you have any questions before our next meeting. Take care.
Thanks. Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for your flexibility with the little technical issues there. So our next item is actually going to be discussing the public outreach consultant selection. So I want to let you know that we put out an RFP and we're now expecting the results of that to come back on August 26th. So it's going to be in a few days. We're actually going to receive the bids from different groups. And based off of that, we'll bring to our September meeting the different proposals that came forward and then allow you to select which group you'd like us to have conduct all of the public outreach. And that'll be gearing up for our meetings that will take place in January, February, March, and April. So that's kind of where things stand right now. I was hoping to have those from the different vendors so far, but they're taking a little time. So August 26th is when we'll have that, and then we can base our next meeting off of that.
Is that what is it that these individuals are going to do for us?
Yes, they're going to do our public outreach for inviting people to attend all of the public hearings that we're going to have in January and in February, and doing it in multiple languages, and also doing it more robust than what we can do just via the city's website and via any limited means that the city has. They're going to do everything from text message campaigns to social media, potentially door knocking, direct mail, basically pretty robust outreach, and then targeting that specifically within the time frame of specific districts that we're going to be in when we're actually having our meetings. So really blasting into a specific community a week before we're going to have a meeting in District 2, and vice versa if we're having it in District 1 or 4. So that's basically what the group is going to do. Right now I set the tentative budget line for around $20,000, not to exceed that, so we should expect that to be where things should be coming in, and that leaves us with a substantial amount to still allocate for not only the demographer but then translation and the technical upgrades that need to be made at these different meeting sites. So we're still within our $200,000 budget that was set. Yeah, but you guys ultimately have the approval on that. We can go lower. That was just an estimate that we had.
It'd be higher than that.
Yes, please. Do you mind turning on your mic? I'm so sorry. So it's recorded. So sorry.
Go.
Yeah, thank you.
For the RFP,
Yeah.
what type of contract you will be sending it out, and for what population? Is that in Escondido, or are you focusing mainly in Escondido or the surrounding cities?
Yeah, so mainly in Escondido is the purpose of doing that. And if you want, I can send you the RFP. I can email that
Yes.
to everyone so you guys
Yes.
can see that. Yeah, I'll forward that
love
to you
to
after
read
this
that.
meeting, by all means. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
and
yeah, I'm
then-
so sorry.
Yeah, just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So when is the RFP due to be out to the general public, and what is the bidding process?
Yeah, so the bidding process that went through, we have to receive at least 3 bids in order to make a selection. So that is going to be the total amount. It went out, I apologize, I forget the date. It was submitted by our communications department with Michael Thorne and Teresa, and I believe they submitted that, I want to say around July 26th, if I'm not mistaken, when it actually was posted. So we should receive at least 3 bids and then be able to bring those back to you for selection at our September meeting.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So we are the panel to
Yes.
review those contracts? Okay, great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, most
We
definitely.
wanted to make sure that we have,
Yes.
the ability to review and make the selection.
Of course.
The other question I had was that for January and February outreach,
Yes.
if whoever win the contract, let's say we select one contractor to do all of this kind,
Yeah.
are they going to communicate with all of us in terms of what is the process, what they're going to be doing, and then they're coming back and present it to us a plan of action so we can go through and discuss and making the final decision, correct? They're only
Exactly.
there, mainly there for coordinating the process for us.
Correct.
Okay.
They basically are just a resource for you to be able to reach out to the community. And the objective was to have all of that information submitted by them to this meeting date, and then we'd be having them coming back in September. As a result of the delay, I anticipate we might need to schedule 2 meetings in September, one where you're making the selection, and then later on in September where they're actually presenting their plan. So we come October, we can actually begin with the rollout of the actual outreach. So I anticipate we'll probably do 2 meetings in September as a result of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, Bobby.
So I imagine in the RFP, does it kind of break down the scope of services?
Yeah.
Because we're still doing the outreach events, right?
Mhm.
But they're just wraparound services like marketing, social media.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and they could play a role in assisting us as well at some of those pop-up events, like we talked about going to Cruising Grand or some of the other items that you had listed, but that's going to be more the individual commissioners. If you want to attend those, we can facilitate that, but they're really more the wraparound services, the I would say the deeper dive, if that makes sense.
Got it. And then you mentioned the budget. Just can you give us a quick update on that?
Yeah.
As far as what will be left after this, we pick our outreach firm.
Yeah. So we set the RFP not to exceed $20,000. We approved a budget for $200,000 for the entire commission work for the entire scope of the commission. We've spent a few thousand only related to translation so far, just translating the agendas. So anything beyond that, we probably still have around $175,000 to deal with. If we went to that $20,000 threshold, I could anticipate it comes in underneath that. But after we make that selection, then we only remaining expenditures are Karen McDonald, Jane Hood, Q2 data, but then beyond that is just translation and any technology upgrades that we're going to do at different facilities so that we can have Zoom meetings at off-site facilities like schools and things along those lines.
So we're doing good with the budget.
Very good, yeah. Yes.
My question is, so are we getting a packet of information, or are they presenting to us? How are we?
Yeah, my anticipation was for them to provide us with a packet of information. I'd provide you with all of the different proposals, and then you make the selection. If at that point, after you've seen the proposal, you want to interview a group before making a selection, we can completely facilitate that. It's really up to your discretion. My only thing I would say is because of the timeline that we're dealing with, I would anticipate we're going to want marketing to really start kind of in that late October, November, before it gets lost in December, and then they'll pick up again in December and January. They're going to kind of, I'll leave that to them to determine the most effective way, but as long as we're making a decision, hopefully before the middle of October, probably the latest, I think would be ideal. But obviously we can schedule redistricting commission meetings with just one agenda item, so we could do it any time. Not a problem, yeah. Any other questions? All right, if none, what I'll do is I'll go over to the staff computer, and I have a little training for you guys based off of what was requested last time, just about the Brown Act. So let me get that pulled up for you. All right. Out of all of the commission bodies we have, I would say you have probably gone through the most thorough vetting process and the most thorough ethics training, and everything has already happened up until this point because you guys began applying for this back in the summer of 2020, and here we are in late 2021. So I just want to first of all thank you guys for that. But just going to give you kind of a brief overview of the Brown Act. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. Is it coming up full screen on your, or is it kind of? Yeah, super strange. Can you? Yeah.
I think you might need to choose from the drop down there, or
Let's close this thing.
It's still, the whole screen is.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It might be because they were adjusting some of the settings, because this was working right before the meeting. Let me go run to our IS team and ask them if they can. Let's see here. Yeah, let me just run over to IS and ask if you can get that reset.
Hey, Zach. Juan and I were actually just talking. We think that the 20,000 is kind of low.
Yeah.
Like but like, I would think that over a 4-month period, if they're helping us to like, I mean, I don't know, because it's $5,000 a month, and you're thinking that they're doing translation, right? You said.
Yeah.
And
they will be only doing a limited amount of translation. The
okay.
bulk of the translation that's the most expensive is when we do the agendas. Those
Okay.
because you have to that's where a majority of the lion's share of that translation cost is. But for advertising, it's going to be a bit more limited. But yes, they will be doing some translation.
Okay. I guess, well, once we see the RFP, we could probably make a determination based off of that if we want more or less, or.
Totally, yeah, and I would leave that up to your discretion. If you guys want to exceed that, we can. Obviously, we want to do a robust outreach. I didn't want us to shoot too high because we want to kind of keep it in a range where we're not going to expend too much. I think Karen's contract at the end of the day is probably going to be between $80,000 to $100,000, similar to what it was back in 2013, 2014 timeframe. And then with the additional translation costs and technological upgrades, I think that's going to be somewhere in that like $20,000 range, separate from the public outreach. So I just put in around 20,000 to kind of keep it, relatively low, so we have buffer, but that buffer is here, so we could always exceed that if we wanted
But
to.
the RFP's already out.
It is, yeah. So we'd have to go through another process, but we can expedite it.
Do we have any submissions already?
No submissions
Do
yet.
we anticipate getting submissions?
Yeah, and like I said, and this, I apologize because this has been handled by our communications team, Teresa and Michael, and they basically have informed me that on the 26th is when we anticipate getting all of the submissions.
Oh, okay.
Last minute.
Yeah, so I'll be able to send those to you as soon as I have them for you to review, and then we can set a date based off of that, so you can actually review it in the public.
So if I can clarify my request to see the copy of the RFP,
Yeah.
it's for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to state the purpose just yet because I wanted to read the scope of service
Yeah.
stated in the RFP number 1. I also wanted to see the objective of, that written in the RFP, because right now it's very difficult for us to make a determination of what cost would be entail until I get a chance to see, and I'm sure the commissioners wanted to see that as well.
Right.
Because when you see the scope of service and the requirement in the RFP, then we can make a determination whether 20,000 would be very low end, or what are the expectation for us when we see, because outreach it could be pretty expensive, but we don't know that until we know the scope that required for those RFPs. So I'm glad you asked that question, but that was my intention.
Yeah, and as commissioners, we might want more outreach, right? And that's within our jurisdiction, right?
Completely, yeah.
Okay.
All of this is within your jurisdiction as far as how many resources you want to allocate towards this. And we did set a budget of
Correct.
$200,000, but even then, we could go back to the council and request additional funding if necessary. I don't foresee that, but you have the ultimate authority as the commission to make this determination how much we want to allocate. So,
And one of the things that I wanted to share with the group, with all the commissioner, is that I know that the City of Escondido residents and people are very interested participating in all of these outreach, and a few have already reached out and kind of gather information, and you will be hearing from them very soon. But these are legitimate organizations that very much wanted to get involved, want to be a part of what we're doing, because we have to reach out. So I wanted to make sure we have the appropriate tools, the appropriate funding, and also the coordination that we can assist our citizen in the City of Escondido.
yeah, by all means.
Agreed.
Great. Any other questions?
Yes, just one.
Yes, go for it.
So let's say it's late December, early January, and we have decided that maybe that the budget that was approved isn't enough. Is it possible to do a contract or budget amendment later on during the process?
Yeah, so we can do a budget adjustment anytime. I would think that time frame might be a little late. I would, because the meetings are going to be taking place in January, we could do it at that time frame. Hopefully, we've identified that maybe in November, so we can get it to a council to approve, have that approved, and then actually have those resources released to be able to be spent. So all that to say, yes, we could do it as late as January, but I would think, and because I'll show you the finalized timeline that we have now, I would be shooting for before then to make any adjustments if necessary. Yeah.
What about an amendment to the proposal?
Oh, yes, yeah, you can
Okay.
make, yeah, if we've gotten to a contract with someone, we can make an amendment to their proposal as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? Yeah.
I think just a comment, I think
Yeah.
once we issue the RFP and you're getting a very few people apply for the grant, then we kind of know that, the amount of money that we put in the RFP may not be adequate enough for the contractors to bid. So that's when we should be able to make a decision.
Most definitely.
Yeah, that is why as a group, we should be reviewing the RFP very careful, just to make sure that we have the adequate information.
By all means.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that group you just mentioned?
I'm sorry?
You just mentioned the name of a group?
One of the groups that I believe already share the Kathy McDonald information.
McDonald? Yeah.
Yes, I think there was a group out in Escondido have already shared that information and reach out, and I don't have the name of that group, but I can get it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be,
The majority of the groups here in Escondido are very interested in what we do. They wanted to make sure that they are part of it, and I think we should engage them in term of outreach to the
yeah,
community.
definitely. I just asked because we want a outside organization like that. We would have to log that in our communication log. Is that correct?
If and I'll go over this in the Brown Act, but if an individual commissioner is communicating, you guys can do that at your discretion. It's just a matter of sharing it with a quorum of the commission. That would need to be logged, because that would actually be something we'd want to be having agendized and discussed in a public forum like this. But if you're having a separate discussion as a commissioner, you're more than welcome to do that. It's not required to be logged in the record if you're just having a communication.
And that was not the intent here at all. It just,
No, I know. I'm
they have their own meeting, and we just need to be aware so we can be responsive to their needs. That's all.
Yeah, of course. I just want to make sure that like we're official correspondence with like an outside group, an NGO, whatever. That's not something that we need to like track, right? Like when
Not for that purpose. So as it relates to the Public Records Act, any of that dialogue that does happen, we have a separate email address that's specific to the Districting Commission, and we will have formal communication that comes through there. And if I receive those, I forward them to Robert as the chair. And there's been a few instances where we've had to interact with like the San Diego Redistricting Commission and things along those lines. But you just want, this might be really good time for me to go into the Brown Act training, because I'll go over this in more detail. But yeah, that's exactly what we're kind of looking at is you don't have to worry as much about that. You just want to exercise good judgment. And that's, since you've all gone through such a thorough vetting process to be sitting on that dais, I think the city trusts your judgment in relation to that, if that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Any other questions about the contract or about the public outreach campaign that I can answer? And if anything else comes up, let me know. All right, let me go to the training now. So the Brown Act, and let's see if it does it this time. I apologize for the previous issue. Full page. All right. Can you guys see it? Fantastic. All right, so real quick, just want to go over kind of background of the Brown Act and some of the basics associated with it. First with the background. So the Ralph M. Brown Act, this is part of Government Code Section 54950, and it says the following: all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of the legislative body of a local agency unless an exception applies. So basically, we just want to have with the Brown Act a very open and transparent government. That is kind of the overall purpose, and I'll get into that with the next slide. The whole purpose of this is that we have transparent government. We want public access to meetings, public access to deliberations, public participation, and public access to documents. So basically the Brown Act was passed in relation to some of the things that happened with Watergate back in the Nixon administration. All these kind of dominoes fell, and this is kind of the sunshine law that we have here in California that's a model for other states as well. With that being said, let's get into some of the basics associated with that. When it comes to meetings like what we're having tonight, the way a meeting is defined by the Brown Act is as follows. It says a meeting is any gathering of a majority of the members of a legislative body at the same time and location to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So basically that would be a quorum. So a quorum for our group would be more than 4. So once we reach 4, then we were at a quorum, and that means we're having a meeting. So we just need to make sure it's happening in public, not behind closed doors. It's happening where people could comment and voice their opinion and things along those lines. There are some exceptions. This is going to be important, especially as we get closer to maybe attending some public outreach meetings, or you guys might be going to a place where you're talking to a community group or things along those lines. There are some exceptions to this. Individual member contacts or conversations between a member and another person. So like we talked about previously with Commissioner Dallin, who was having an interaction with a community group, that's totally fine. That doesn't count as a meeting. That's not something you have to worry about. What you do have to worry about are what are called serial meetings. That's where you'd basically discuss in multiple different times. So let's say Carolyn spoke to Juan, and then Carolyn then spoke to Mariella, and then Carolyn then spoke to Robert, but they didn't all speak to each other, but she spoke to all of them. That would be a serial meeting. So like you're basically trying to like count the cards or count the votes before a meeting, and that has happened in not in Escondido, but in different cities and municipalities. It's a very big legal issue, because then you're not making that decision in the public view. You're basically making a decision behind the scenes. That's what a serial meeting constitutes. So no serial meetings is very, very important. Next thing is where a majority of members appear at certain open and publicized conferences, meetings of other organizations, or another legislative body or another agency. So if you sit on a different group, like you're on the Planning Commission, so if you were there and let's say there was another member from the group who's on the Planning Commission, that wouldn't count as a meeting of the Redistricting Commission. That would be a totally separate meeting. So you're totally fine. Just make sure, once again, careful to not talk to other individuals who serve on the Redistricting Commission about regular agency business. I think that's just kind of a good, safe way to approach this. Majority majority of the members at a purely social or ceremonial occasion. So if you're attending a ribbon cutting ceremony, if you're attending, if the Chamber of Commerce invites you over to speak or anything along those lines, you're totally fine, even if we had a quorum of the commission there. Just don't talk about agency business together, and make sure that you're aware of the public perception of improper discussions happening. So you don't want to be seen having this like side discussion where it looks like something is going shady when it shouldn't be, that kind of a thing. Electronic communication, so getting into that. So a couple of recommendations, just guides based off of this. Don't communicate your position or make a comment on a pending matter to a majority of members. So once again, just you really want to be careful about that, where you're not tipping your hand as to where you're going to be voting or anything along those lines. This isn't as significant of an issue when it comes to our work, because you guys are really working as a cohesive body. It can become a very big issue in more divided groups, like a city council, where you might have 3 in favor and 2 opposed. So it's just one of those things where you just really want to be aware of, irrespective of what you're doing, but just kind of be mindful of that. You don't want to solicit responses from other members when forwarding along information you receive, such as if you receive an email from a citizen, you don't want to send it just to one other commissioner and say, hey, what do you think about what they're saying? And don't reply all. It's better to not do that, because you might open up the door of having a serial meeting. So it's fine if you're accepting a meeting invitation, for myself or anything, but if you're saying, I disagree with this, or I believe we should allocate this amount of funding, don't send that to everyone, because then that could constitute a serial meeting. Next thing, the things you do, you want to use caution when emailing any other member of the legislative body with informational items, and when in doubt, send the email to myself, and I will be sure to forward it to everyone, and then kind of keep things within the confines of the Brown Act. And that's basically it as it relates to the Brown Act for our body. Any questions about that? You guys are already doing a great job of this, so it's kind of just a little refresher, but any questions? No? Cool. All right. Well, let me pivot to our next thing real quick. Is at last meeting we approved the schedule, but I told you I'd come back with the kind of finalized version of that for you to look through and take into consideration the Planning Commission meetings so we could adjust those dates. So I just want to go over what I was able to come up with, but also this is a living document right now. You ultimately have the say in it, so I want to make sure that if you see anything right now that we might want to change or adjust, I can kind of work on that. But as we go through this, it'll be important for me to kind of have some clear direction on this, because I'll need to start reserving these different locations, and that could take some time, because there's going to be some technical elements associated with that as well. So this is based off the consent decree, the number of meetings we need to have, and the specific time frame. But now I just want to show you how I have it structured at this moment. So we'd start in early January, and that would be on a Wednesday. There's no city council meeting that week, so it works for city's purposes. We would do it at Mission Middle School in District 1. And I decided just to start in District 1, then 2, 3, 4, and just kind of repeat that. You'll see it. That's going to be our trend. Then we go up to January 8th, which would be that Saturday, and that'd be at Reedy Creek Elementary. And just as I wish I had a map up here to show you, but I try to do my best when selecting these locations based off of Juan. You gave me some great advice and recommendations as to what we should look at, but try to really cover the entire city, because you could be technically in District 2, but be really close to District 1, or you could be technically in District 4, really close to District 3. So I tried my best to kind of expand the map as best we possibly can, so that way we hit 2 different areas of each district, if that makes sense. So you'll see that kind of reflected here. So Reedy Creek, kind of northern part of Escondido. Then that following Monday, we'd be at the East Valley Community Center, which is in D3. Then we would come January 13th at San Pasqual High School in District 4. Then, it says Washington Park Recreation Building. That would be that Tuesday back in District 1. And District 1 was probably the most challenging, because it's the smallest district, so there's not a lot of geographical distance to go there, but I tried to get kind of our northern end and our southern end of District 1. Then January 20th, which is a Thursday, Park Avenue Community Center. And I apologize, Commissioner Dowan, I did speak so far. It looks like there will not be a Planning Commission meeting on January 18th, so I'm hoping they hold to that, so we shouldn't have a scheduling conflict there. Then after we have those first 6 meetings, we'd actually approve the preliminary map. So during these 6 meetings, this is the most robust amount of public engagement, because this is where we're literally drawing the maps. We're literally having the public come in and tell us what their communities of interest are. In between all of these meetings, they're submitting their plans on the city's website. They're coming to us and saying what their communities of interest are, and I'm giving you all the information ahead of all of these meetings. So this is going to be a really full time and probably the most engaging time, and after that it gets a bit more formalized. This is kind of an organic type of meeting environment. approving of the preliminary map, you're going to have 2 separate meetings to deliberate on what you just did over those first 6 meetings. So those first 6 meetings, like I said, you're getting public input, starting to draw the maps. Then we have a preliminary map that will need to be approved at one of these meetings. And I would probably recommend doing it the January 27th just to have more public input, more time. So these meetings would just happen like they're happening right now here in council chambers, because they're not technically a public hearing. They're just a regular commission meeting, and that would be a Monday and a Thursday. Then after that, the map technically gets submitted to the city clerk's office, and then it's available for public review for 30 days. And then during that time frame, we have 3 public hearings. So we go back to the public with the map, and then we go back out into these different districts, and then we'd go to Orange Glen on February 3rd in District 3. Then we go to Del Lago Academy in District 4 on February 10th. And then we come back here to a citywide, and this was a great recommendation from the last meeting, because the Escondido Library is really close to the border of D1, 2, 3, and 4. This one serves as kind of our citywide district meeting location, since all of the other districts will have an equal number of public hearings taking place, then with 2 in each of the other districts. And then after those public hearings, we approve the map. So after the map has been approved, that'll hopefully happen here at the commission meeting on the 23rd of February, and then we kind of pivot over to the city council. So we'll submit the map to the city council. And then at the March 9th meeting, the council needs to have a meeting to receive public input. That is technically just a council meeting. Then on March 16th, we actually have a public hearing, and that's slightly different, but that's once again the council is doing this. So you're able to attend, but you're not required to attend these meetings. And then after that, council has the opportunity to approve. We're shooting for this date to actually have the final redistricting map approved on March 23rd. But we built in the contingency of if for some reason they reject it, for whatever reason that happens, you have an opportunity to then have a meeting yourself, and that would be basically exactly the next week, March 29th, we'd convene the whole group, we'd go over whatever their issues were, and then make any adjustments if necessary, or if you say, no, we don't want to change it, then you just submit it back to the council. And then the council has to approve it by the 13th. Technically, April 15th is our deadline, but these are the 2 meeting dates that would be available for them, and those would all be in council chambers. So as you can see, a lot of meetings are happening in council chambers, but there's those 9 public hearings that are happening out in the community that are really going to be where we're probably getting the highest level of engagement, because we're really targeting the individuals who live within the surrounding area. So I can go back and show you all those different locations again if you guys have any questions or input or recommendations, but tentatively that's kind of what I have set up, and now I just kind of need to move forward on securing those locations, which can also be adjusted, but I think having that in place for the community outreach consultant that we end up having is going to be important for them to be able to start targeting the demographics in and around those areas. So any questions about that? Great. Well, if that's the case, let me know. You can email me if for some reason you think, hey, this doesn't look good. I'll email this to you as well when I send you the RFP. That way you guys can have this for your review. But basically, that's just kind of where things stand right now. I know today's a relatively light agenda for the most part of what we have going on, so I appreciate you guys. But any questions about other items related to the Districting Commission, questions for myself, or anything as we kind of move to the next step? I think the most important thing next would be scheduling our next meeting and getting that set up so we can kind of figure out what works best with your respective schedules. So yeah, and I'll pop back up to the top over here. All right, so real quick, I'll just kind of see what our schedule is looking like with the City Council for the month of September, and there shouldn't be any conflicts. We have Labor Day on September 6th, so if we wanted to keep a meeting on a Monday, we could schedule a meeting on either, we could do it, I don't know if Tuesday would work because I think there's a Planning Commission meeting that day. So the 13th of September followed by the 27th of September, if you wanted to have one meeting just to convene and to do that, where we basically just approve the you review and then go through the process of looking at the submissions from the RFP, and then we come back and reconvene maybe on September 27th to actually approve that and invite, if you would like, we could invite one of them to come. Does that sound good? Since we're meeting twice, and we have the digital version, the teleconference, video conference version for you to attend, and also you can come in person. I want to be really respectful, mindful of your schedules, because we're going to get real busy here in January, and so feel free if you want one of those meetings to be solely virtual. If you want to keep it hybrid, whatever you would choose, we can adjust that for one of those meetings if that would be preferable. I don't know if there's a preference in that regard, and obviously with things going on with the Delta variant, we want to be mindful of that too. But sorry, I will stop talking. Yeah. Okay.
Problem with both of them being in person.
Okay.
If someone has to miss one and do it through Zoom, that's fine. But I think the more eyeball to eyeball engagement,
Perfect.
I'm also okay with the dates of the 13th and 27th. That works for me.
Okay.
I'm good with that too.
Me too.
Yeah, 13 and 27.
Yes, those are both Mondays. So Monday the 13th, Monday the 27th.
Monday the 13th, I could probably only do after 5 if I can join virtually,
Okay.
just for that date.
Okay, that sounds great. Excellent.
Yeah, for me, I could do the 13th. I have to do virtual on the 27th.
Okay. Not a problem.
You do virtual. Do you want us to let you know, to notify you all if it's?
Yeah, it would just be helpful to know so that we're not, because obviously sometimes technical issues might
Yeah.
come up. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great. Wonderful. So I'll schedule 13th, 27th. Does 5 o'clock work? Do you want me to push it back to any later to start, or is 5 p.m. still? 5? Okay, perfect. So I'll plan on that, and then we'll kind of move forward accordingly. Are there any other, outside of reviewing the public outreach consultant submissions at that 13th meeting, are there any other items you'd like me to add to that agenda? Anything else you think would be important or helpful to have? Perfect. Then to me that sounds good. I'll plan accordingly. I will send you the RFP once I get back to my office right here, and I'll send you this presentation regarding the timeline. And then outside of that, we'll also think about during the 13th meeting, we'll schedule what we'll have on the agenda for the 27th. And at that time, Karin and Jane might even have some of that census data, the real census data we can start looking at that time, which would be really good. So cool. Any other questions or thoughts? No? You guys are doing a great job, so I appreciate it. All that being said, Chair Case, you want to adjourn? Oh, you can open the meeting and close the meeting at your discretion, but if you want to use a motion for either, you're welcome to. It's up to the chair's discretion on that regard. So whatever you prefer. Perfect. Sounds great. No worries. Thank you. Thank you guys so much.